So I guess with the first a couple of teams you mentioned there, so obviously Salford City, who were in the eighth tier of English football, I think, when the Class of '92 took over, and then of course the Salford Red Devils Rugby League. Do you think, so what were sort of the challenges of applying what you'd implemented at a smaller team into Rangers? Like, was it easier to be a digital disruptor at the smaller team, or is it just when you've got somewhere an open ear and someone who will listen to you, it was sort of the same when you jumped into Rangers?
That's a great question. I think in many ways it was a little easier with Rangers, and perhaps because we're working directly with the foundation, so it was kind of perhaps the lines of communication were a little clearer in terms of the objectives, because a lot of sports charity foundations they're looking to look after the well-being of physical and mental well-being of fans. So something like FanFit kind of I mean, I was just talking to another large rugby club earlier about it, and it's kind of, when you talk to the right person, it's a little bit like pushing an open door, because they're running kind of events and walks and various other things, but don't really have much of a mechanism for sort of trying to pull that together and incentivize. So, for example, up in Scotland, they started the football fans in training, where they physically get fans into the club and train for 12 weeks. But the challenge was, after that, they got them all excited about physical activity, but then after 12 weeks, when the program ended, motivation dropped a little bit, and they'd lost touch with each other, because obviously the social capital bit is important, isn't it, around sports? So that's where the app comes in, really, that ability to kind of create a digital community and enhance the physical one. So just a long-winded answer to your question, I would say in this particular case it was a little easier working with a larger organisation, but I think larger sports clubs often come with a little bit more restriction in terms of what they can and can't do, in terms of the right. Jamie and I were talking earlier in the week about rights managements and red tape and politics and things like that as well. So certainly, I work with a lot of Premier League clubs, and the difference between working with them and other clubs like Salford FC, for example, is they're much more open to doing stuff, and they're a bit less tied up in red tape. Not completely tied up, and all sports clubs at every level are short of time and cash to do things. But it's certainly, with that particular implementation, the Rangers one was a little bit easier because we had a bit more cash behind us and a clearer lines of doing stuff. But in general, I think it's probably easier working with smaller clubs because they're a little bit more open and less bound up in red tape, if you will.